Hello everyone, it's Harmony, and welcome to the visual guide for the Porta Decumana. This trial will become available during the level 50 main scenario quest, called the Ultimate Weapon. The boss will begin with Earthen Fury, an unavoidable group-wide attack that deals heavy damage to all party members. Next, the boss will place a pulsating flare at the outer edge of the arena. This is a proximity marker that deals unavoidable damage based on distance. The closer you are, the more damage you'll take. To minimize the impact, all players should move as far away from the marker as possible. Titan will then drop from above, landing on the proximity marker's impact point and perform Landslide, a frontal, linear area of effect that runs across the full length of the battlefield. To avoid this attack, simply step out of the marked telegraphed area. Once Titan completes the attack, it will disappear, and the boss will then mimic Titan by using Landslide. The boss will then cover the battlefield with 2 waves of circular area of effects. The second wave will appear immediately after the first has detonated. To avoid these, simply step out of the marked telegraphed areas. These mechanics will repeat until the boss reaches 80% health, at which point it will cast Granite Interment, entombing all players in stone. The boss will then attempt to obliterate the party with Earthen Eternity. However, Hydaelyn will intervene, tearing Titan from the boss and freeing the group from their entombments. After this, the boss will no longer be able to use any of the previous mechanics for the remainder of the battle. The boss will now use Aerial Blast, an unavoidable attack that deals heavy damage to all party members. Next, the boss will cast Eye of the Storm, shrinking the arena. Entering the swirling vortex will deal damage and push you back toward the centre of the battlefield. While Eye of the Storm is active, Garuda will periodically appear at a random location at the outer edge of the arena and use Mistral Shriek, a massive circular area of effect centred on Garuda. To avoid this attack, you must move as far away from Garuda as possible until you are out of the marked telegraphed area. These mechanics will repeat until the boss drops to around 55% health, at which point it will cast Vortex Barrier, becoming immune to all damage. The boss will then attempt to wipe the party with Headsman's Wind. However, Hydaelyn will intervene once more, tearing Garuda from the boss and shattering the Vortex Barrier. From this point onward, the boss will no longer use any of the previous mechanics for the remainder of the battle. The boss will now use Hellfire, another unavoidable attack that deals heavy damage to all party members. The boss will now begin to use Radiant Plume, covering the battlefield with 2 waves of circular area of effects. The second wave appears immediately after the first detonates. To avoid these, simply step out of the marked telegraphed areas. Ifrit will now periodically appear in the centre of the battlefield and use Vulcan Burst, dealing damage and knocking all players to the outer edge of the arena. The boss will immediately follow up with another Radiant Plumes, this time placed only along the outer edge. To avoid taking damage, quickly move back toward the centre after being knocked back. These mechanics will repeat until the boss drops to around 35% health, at which point it will attempt to wipe the party with Radiant Blaze. The Mother Crystal will intervene once again, removing Ifrit from the boss. With no more primals at its command, the boss can only perform auto-attacks. Once the boss's health is reduced to about 20%, a cutscene will play, signalling the beginning of Phase 2. The boss will now be at full health and with a new set of mechanics. After the cutscene, a checkpoint will be passed, so if the entire party dies for any reason, you'll restart at the beginning of this phase. Homing Lasers is a tank buster that deals heavy damage to the target. Use defensive cooldowns and shields to mitigate it. The boss will turn to face a random player before unleashing Magitek Ray. This attack consists of a sequence of 3 linear area of effects, 1 straight ahead and 2 at diagonal angles. The rays fire quickly and leave behind a lingering green telegraph before exploding. To avoid these, you must quickly move out of the marked telegraphed areas. Homing Ray will target all players with a circular area of effect for unavoidable damage, spread out to prevent overlapping damage from one another. Tank Purge is a group-wide attack that deals unavoidable damage to all party members. The boss will now teleport to the centre of the battlefield before using Etheric Boom. This will push all players away towards the outer edge of the arena. 2 sets of Etheroplasm orbs tethered to each other will now appear and slowly drift toward the center of the battlefield. If they collide, they'll deal massive damage to the entire party. To prevent this, stand in front of one of the orbs to detonate it early. This will deal a small amount of damage to the player who triggered it and break the tether, causing the paired orb to disperse. Just make sure this is done to both sets of orbs. Laser focus will target one random player with a stack marker. The party will need to stand together to share the incoming damage. The boss will turn to face a random player before using Citadel Buster. This is an untelegraphed frontal linear area of effect attack. To avoid it, make sure you are not standing directly in front of the boss. The boss will now begin to periodically summon assistance from a swarm of magitek bits. These untargetable mini-machines will each face a certain direction before unleashing a frontal linear area of effect. To avoid these, simply step out of the marked telegraphed areas. The boss will finally begin to place 4 pulsating flares around the outer edge of the arena. These are proximity markers that deal unavoidable damage based on distance. The closer you are, the more damage you'll take. To minimize the impact, all players should move to the center of the battlefield. These mechanics will now repeat with an increasing potential for overlap until the boss reaches 30% health. At that point, it will teleport to the center of the battlefield and begin casting Ultima. You must defeat the boss before this cast finishes, or the trial will reset back to the beginning of Phase 2. To help you, Hydaelyn will grant access to a full limit break 3 gauge, which should ideally be used by a melee DPS if you have one in your group. Thank you for watching. If you found this guide helpful, please like, subscribe, turn on notifications, and, most importantly, take care of yourself and each other.